Another topic that seems to be pretty interesting to people that Dr. Pillai has brought to the table for this mystery school is lucid dreaming. So Dr. Pillai has talked a lot about the different brain waves, and I know this is exciting for you. He mentioned that it's the theta waves that are superior and that allow your brain to create, he calls it lucid dreaming and creating a new reality, so that if you move into these different states of your brain waves, specifically the theta ones, that you can create a new reality. But then he says most of us spend more of our time stuck in the alpha or the beta waves. So I was hoping that you could help us by explaining what this means and how it's relevant to us.
That's a great question, because, I mean, quite apparently, 95% of humanity has no idea the difference between a theta, a beta, and an alpha brain state. I certainly didn't either. What I thought I might do, though, is actually share a quick little screen I did on this little PowerPoint here, just because I think it's easier visually to kind of see it. And I promise you this will be a brief, easy to learn cliff notes of thought neuroscience. As a background, though, I think it's really helpful to know when we're talking about our brains and our human vibration, you know, everything in this world is a frequency or a wave or a vibration, and we often kind of don't know where we as a human fit into this. We have cell phones, we have radio waves, we have light. So this is a quick little chart I found, which explains the different frequencies of common things that we use on a day-to-day basis. There's X-rays and visible light, and at the higher end of the range, these waves are very, very high frequency. They're high energy, and what that high frequency means actually is that these waves are very, very short and tiny. The wavelength, at the time that it takes that wave to cross itself, it's like the time it takes a wave to move from one point to another, the duration of its full length is very, very small. So when you're talking about these high frequency waves like light, visible light, X-rays, those are very relatively so high frequency waves. And as you go down lower and lower on the scale, you get to radio waves, AM waves, then you get down to our auditory frequency vibe, and then you get to the subsonic waves. Now this is where it gets interesting, because what is subsonic? Well, brainwaves, right? Our brainwaves and our thoughts operate at subsonic or infrasonic frequencies. And that means that these waves are very long. When you go into low frequency states, the wavelength of these waves could be hundreds of thousands of miles. I mean, they're very, very long waves, and yet they're very subtle. So this is how they measure brainwaves, and because of technology and development of science, they've been able to categorize the different quality of our brainwaves into different frequencies. And this is pretty much what it looks like. So there are 5 primary groupings of our brainwaves. And the highest frequency one, the one with the highest energy and most activity, is called gamma. And our brains don't normally stay in a gamma state. It's kind of like this burst of activity where the whole brain is active. And it could be like a sudden burst of insight, but it's not easy to maintain, nor necessarily desirable, because it's full brain activity all the time, not turned off. The next level down is called beta, which Dr. Pillai referred to on the website. Now, beta waves are basically our day-to-day thoughts. So as soon as you hear beta, think, I'm in beta. You're using beta to listen to this, you're reading the slide. We're using beta to do this. It's analytical, it's logic, it's cognition. But at the higher frequency of beta, that's also our stress and our anxiety. Now, if you go a little bit calmer and you slow it down a little bit more, you go into a state called alpha. And alpha is a more relaxed state. It's more kind of like when you just kick back, you're in a light meditative state, and you just kind of relax. And during the alpha state, it's actually very easy to absorb things and learn things. And it's the start of when the brain starts to go into this unconscious mindset. Otherwise, we've been in our rational, conscious thinking state, which is beta. When you slow it down, that's when into the alpha state, your unconscious mind begins to develop. And it's also where serotonin is released. And serotonin is pretty much a feel-good hormone. So you start to relax and you start to feel good. Now what happens after you kind of relax? Well, you might fall asleep. And that is the next state. That's the theta state. It's a sleep state where you have rapid eye movement. So it's the dreaming sleep state. It's called increase, I hope I say this right, catecholamines, which are basically like your endorphins and your adrenaline. So when you're in dream state, your adrenaline system repairs, and it's a feel-good reparative state. But interesting, in that theta state is when you start to access the unconscious mind. And you can also enter into this state in deep meditation. When you're doing some very deep meditation and your thoughts stop, you enter into a theta state as well. It's also the state of lucid dreaming, which is this module. And then as you go a bit slower and even more so, it's the sleep state and the deep relaxation state. So those are the frequencies. So I think now, everyone knows beta means normal thinking state. Alpha is when you kind of relax. And then theta is that rapid eye movement, sleep state. It's also the place of lucid dreaming. And when your brain gets really, really quiet, that's samadhi and deep relaxation. I just want to show you quickly before I move this back to Paru of what it looks like, basically an untrained mind and a trained mind. So for most of us, unless you're maybe in the arts or something, for most of us, our brain is on the left, right? There's the beta sign, we're thinking individuals, and we're very left brain. And as you know, left brain is logical. We use a little glimmer of our right brain, but we're primarily pretty much in beta state. If you're a scientist or you're doing any type of day-to-day work, you're pretty much in beta. But as you train your mind through meditation and practice and activate both sides of your brain, the trained brain looks very different. And it's a brain that is alert, it's balanced, it's focused, it can deal with a number of situations in a non-stress manner. Because beta is a thinking state, but beta is also the stressful state. So on the right here, you have what a trained mind looks like. And there's the beta. And then you go down lower, that big burst there is the alpha, when you're in that calm, relaxed state. And then you get a little bump of that theta. And then below is the delta. So basically, that's the difference between your day-to-day brain and a trained brain, where you will be at the end of the mystery school. Let me just stop that sharing there and hand that back to you, Paru.
Thank you for that. It's definitely helpful to see what that looks like. In the literature he gave us about the teachings, he mentioned Thomas Edison, who obviously was a famous inventor, but as someone who used lucid dreaming. And so I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit, like, why is it useful to someone like Thomas Edison, and then how can it be useful to us that we could actually use the lucid dreaming technique to help us?
Yeah, this is actually fascinating. Thomas Edison obviously is a scientist. So remember that graph, he's left brain beta, right? He's thinking, he's logical, he's using his mind. But what he did, which kind of put him out of the class of the other scientists and his contemporaries at the time, and this is documented, he would do this technique where after a day of work, all the problems would be running through his mind. He would sit in his armchair, completely relaxed, right? And what does that do? We know that now. He's going into a little bit alpha. So he sits in his armchair and he would hold this rubber ball in his hand, and beneath it he would have this metal plate. And as he would begin to relax and kind of drift off to sleep, and he would just let his mind relax and kind of drift off, as soon as he started to fall asleep and enter that theta state, the ball would drop from his hand and hit that metal plate. So he drifted off to theta, but yet the sound of that ball would activate some beta. So he could simultaneously be in the theta-beta state. Now, obviously, Edison didn't have EEGs at the time and didn't know how to do this, but that's pretty much the definition of lucid dreaming. There's lucid dreaming you do at night when you're dreaming, and then you try to become conscious in the dream. And if you're dreaming at night and you can wake yourself up and be aware, you have the power to control that dream and to control reality and actually start to influence your mundane reality. There's another technique that Edison did, which I also think Dr. Pillai will share more on in the new mystery school, where you're in a conscious state and you relax and you put yourself into that lucid dreaming state while still conscious. So it's very exciting that we can enter these states, because Thomas Edison was able to pull concepts, relations, and ideas that put him far above any of his peers by doing this. He could see correlations no one else could see. So lucid dreaming is very important for you to be able to create at a different level using your full brain activation.
Wow, that's fantastic, and I think so relevant to everyone that we could tap into that. I know Dr. Pillai mentioned doing it at certain times, so there'll be specific times that he guides us to do the lucid dreaming, and then also to be able to write it down, to not forget what happens. So if you have those great ideas, those Thomas Edison type of inventions, whatever it is in your world, that you want to capture that as well. And I think it's really exciting. I know a lot of people have asked about the lucid dreaming section, so I look forward to more from Dr. Pillai on that.
It's mind-blowing. You can really create your whole new reality when you know how to control your brain, and Dr. Pillai is going to do this from the Siddha and the Tamil Siddha perspective. So you're getting it from a mastery perspective. He's going to share even more secrets.
Yeah, that's right. I know you had mentioned, I mentioned Thomas Edison, but Dr. Pillai also mentioned how the yogis and the siddhas were adept at lucid dreaming, and so he can give us all of that information from the siddha lineage.
Yes, definitely.